On this program, a wide variety of rigging equipment is shown in many different situations. The particular equipment used in various rigging operations is often a matter of company policy. For example, some plants may require safety latches on hooks. Others may require the use of thimbles in the eyes of rope slings. Be certain that you understand and follow the rules in force at your facility.
All rigging equipment must be inspected thoroughly on a regular schedule. But it takes more than that to make certain that a sling or hook or shackle will not fail during a lift. Inspection is an ongoing process because equipment can be damaged at any time. Before you rig a load, it is very important to take a few minutes to be sure your slings and hardware are in good condition and safe to use. In many cases, the first thing to look for is a clear indication of the rated capacity of the sling. Every time you use a synthetic web or a chain sling, be certain that it has an identification tag, clearly listing its load capacity. Check the handles of a metal mesh sling for the sling's capacity. If you cannot read the rated capacity, do not use the sling. With synthetic web slings, you need to check the fabric, the stitches, and the end fittings. Most damage to the fabric is easy to see. Do not use a sling with broken or worn stitching, not even one broken stitch. If you find any melting or charring, or a hole, tear, or cut, or if there are particles embedded in the material, the sling should be taken out of service until a qualified inspector approves it for continued use. But there is one kind of damage that may be difficult to detect. Synthetic slings typically have a slippery feel to them. If you ever notice that the fibers feel rough instead of slick, or if you see a color change in the sling, it has probably been damaged by ultraviolet radiation and should be removed from service. If the sling has metal end fittings, check to be sure that they have not been twisted or bent and that they are in good condition. If they have any deep gouges, or if they look like they are worn down severely, tag the sling for a detailed inspection. Now, the same kinds of things apply to metal mesh slings. You have got to inspect the fabric and the end fittings. To inspect the mesh for stretch or distorted spirals or rods, lay the sling on the floor. If it lies flat from end to end, the spirals are probably in good condition. If the fabric is distorted, or if there is any binding when the sling is moved, do not use the sling. You should also check the joints between the spirals and rods. Any broken weld must be repaired by a qualified person before the sling is used again. Now take a good look at the end fittings. As with a web sling, the sling must be taken out of service if they are damaged, worn, twisted, or distorted. The problem with checking chain is that damage to any one link can be critical, so it is important to be thorough. Start by checking for stretched or distorted links. You can do this by letting it hang or by stretching it out on the floor. The links should move easily without binding. If there is any resistance to free movement, the chain has probably been overloaded and has one or more stretched links. Do not use it. Next, wipe the chain clean and check it over. Be on the lookout for pitting, deep nicks or gouges, and severe wear. Be especially watchful for cracks wherever you find a nick or gouge. Cracks are not easy to see, but even a very small one can cause the link to open up under load. If you find any of these problems, tag the sling and take it out of service until it is inspected by a qualified person, repaired if necessary, and approved for further use. Now, some damage to wire rope is pretty easy to see. Do not use any rope, hoist rope, or rope sling that is kinked, crushed, bird caged, or otherwise distorted. Any loss of diameter in a wire rope is an indication of a serious problem or a combination of serious problems. Any loss of diameter that you can see is a warning to take the rope out of service. Corrosion, wherever it occurs, is a major destroyer of rope strength. To make the problem worse, you cannot tell how deep a pit is by looking at it. When you see pitting on the outside of a rope, you can be pretty sure that there is more damage on the inside where you cannot see it. You are taking a chance if you continue to use the rope. You also need to check for areas of severe wear. Worn wires take on a bright appearance, and when you look closely, you will see that they are flattened on the outside. If it looks like the wires at a worn place have lost as much as 1/3 of their original diameter, take the rope out of service. With adjustable wire rope slings, pay special attention to the part of the rope that comes in contact with the sheave or rollers. This is where you're going to have the most wear. Now, any rope in regular use is going to have broken wires sooner or later. The number of allowable broken wires depends on how the rope is being used and on what part of the rope the breaks occur. If the rope is used as the hoist rope for a bridge or gantry crane, you are allowed to have 12 broken wires in one rope lay, or 4 breaks in a single strand in a lay. But rope that is used for slings is allowed only 10 broken wires anywhere within a lay. And in any strand within a lay, there can be only 5 broken wires. For additional safety, many plants have adopted a standard of only 6 breaks in a lay and 3 breaks in a strand within a lay. Some plants do not even allow that many. Make sure you know the policy at your facility. If you find a broken wire that is protruding as much as 1/16 of an inch or so, clip it off, but do not clip it flush. It is important to be able to keep track of how many broken wires there are and where they are on the rope. Some facilities require a report of all broken wires. Marking the spot with paint may make it easier to find again. There are a couple of places on a rope where even one broken wire is cause for replacement. One of these is in the valleys between the strands. The inside wires of a rope are under a lot of stress. So if one wire wears enough to break, there are probably other broken wires in there. If not, there probably will be soon. Another place where even one broken wire is critical is at the end fittings. A break near a socket or sleeve is usually caused by repeated bending or other stress. Not only are other wires in that area likely to be near the breaking point, but there is a good chance that there are broken wires up inside the fitting. Take the sling out of service if you find any evidence of corrosion or even one broken wire at the base of a socket. As with other kinds of slings, you also have to check the end fittings to be sure they are not distorted or worn. Sometimes the eyes are protected with a steel thimble on the inside of the eye. If thimbles are used, check to see that the openings have not spread to where they cut into the rope. Now, there may be a good bit of judgment involved in deciding whether to remove a rope from service. A rope may have 3 or 4 broken wires in several different lays and worn spots in several places. Any one of these problems may not be cause to replace the rope. But if a rope has a combination of problems, it's probably best to take it out of service. Some companies have a policy of replacing all rope after a certain length of service, even if it seems to still be in good condition. In addition to the sling itself, you also need to inspect any hardware you use. Check hooks for deformity. Hooks that have been opened more than 15% or twisted more than 10 degrees should be destroyed. But these are outside limits. It is safe practice to replace a hook any time it begins to open up or twist enough to notice. Hooks are most likely to wear on the saddle and on the eye or pin. Take a good look at these two areas. If it looks like there's as much as 10% wear, tag the hook for a detailed inspection. There are special tests that can also be run on a hook if you think it may be cracked. A dye penetration test or a magnaflux test like this will show up a crack if it's there. Before you use an eye bolt or a swivel bolt, be sure the threads are in good condition, that the shank is not cracked or bent, and that the eye is not damaged or excessively worn. For machine eye bolts, not only do you have to look at the eye bolt itself, but you need to be sure that the threads of the hole are good, and that the hole is the correct diameter. The correct depth is also important. Anything less than a perfect match could result in an accident. There are two parts to a shackle that you have to be concerned about: the pin and the shackle itself. The first thing to check is to be sure someone has not substituted a bolt or anything else for the shackle pin. The pin supports as much weight as the sling itself, sometimes the weight of the entire load. You cannot count on a makeshift pin to have enough strength for the lift. Be sure the pin is straight and not bent. On the shackle itself, look for stretch or distortion. With screw-type shackles, the pin should come through the other side about one thread. If it comes through more than that, the shackle has stretched. If it does not come through that much, the opening is spread. Like hooks, shackles will wear at the places where the load pulls on them. Take a good look at the crown and the pin. If either one looks like it is worn more than 10%, tag it out of service for a closer inspection. A turnbuckle should be checked for wear or damage at the end fittings. Inspect the neck area for cracks and bends, and look for thread damage and bent rods in the body. The ends should turn easily. If they do not use the turnbuckle. Now, you may never have to perform a detailed periodic inspection of rigging equipment. In fact, many facilities contract this important job out to specialists. But a periodic inspection includes a very close check for all of the problems that you look for in daily use. So understanding what is involved will help you do a better job. Records are established when equipment is received at the plant and updated with each periodic inspection, at least once a year for normal service. If the equipment is used in severe service, periodic inspections must be conducted monthly or quarterly. A detailed inspection of a metal mesh sling includes a close look at wire diameter. If the inspection finds a reduction of 15% from corrosion or 25% from wear, the sling is removed from service. The slot in a handle cannot be more than 10% wider than it was to begin with. If the opening that goes over the hoist hook is worn more than 15%, or if its width has been decreased by more than 10%, the sling is taken out of service. With chain, careful link-by-link inspection is extremely important. A detailed chain inspection usually begins the same way as your daily inspection, by checking for binding, which is a sign of stretched or otherwise deformed links. Then the length of each sling leg is compared to its length when new. Even a very small amount of stretch can be a cause for concern because it may be the result of one or two dangerously deformed links. If stretch is suspected, each link is measured and compared to its measurement when new. If a chain is worn more than the allowable wear listed by the manufacturer, it is taken out of service. Small nicks and gouges may be ground or filed, but only by someone who has been trained in chain repair and in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations. When new rope arrives from the manufacturer, a record is set up for it, including a description of the rope, the date it is put into service, and its size, construction, and length. The original lay of the rope can be recorded by making an imprint of it on a piece of paper. This provides a visual record for easy comparison later on. Or the lay can be measured accurately and the measurement written down. In the case of rope slings, the exact length of the entire sling is usually recorded. At each periodic inspection, the rope is checked for stretch. A rope that is stretched more than the manufacturer's allowance should be removed from service. Rope diameter is carefully checked with a caliper or micrometer. When rope is measured, it is important that the measurement is made across the crowns of the strands, not the flat parts between strands. A rope will naturally lose some diameter after it is used for a while, but any diameter loss should be compared to the manufacturer's tables for acceptable limits. Periodic inspections will detect when wear and tear have reached unacceptable limits and equipment should be removed from service. However, equipment can be damaged at any time. and wear can reach unacceptable limits in between inspections. So check your equipment daily. It is up to you to be sure that slings and hardware are safe to use every time you use them.